Act like you love me, the cold billionaire ordered, but he wasn't ready for her impossible rule. Faith didn't flinch. She simply said, "I'll pretend, but you don't get to control me." But as she stepped toward him with confidence, eyes unafraid, he felt something he'd spent years avoiding: loss of control. Adrian needed her for one night, one deal, one lie that could save everything he was about to lose. But the more she spoke, the more he realized she wasn't the obedient stand-in he expected, and the rule she gave wasn't just a condition. It was a warning, and the most dangerous part, he wasn't sure he wanted to obey it. The Morgan Library fundraising gala was in full swing when Adrian Kent's carefully controlled world began to collapse. He stood at the edge of the ballroom, champagne untouched in his hand, watching the entrance with the focused intensity of a man waiting for execution. His father had been cryptic on the phone that morning. "Be at the Morgan Library tonight. 7 p.m. sharp. It's time we had a conversation about your future." Adrian knew what that meant. Richard Kent didn't do subtle. At precisely 7:15, his father arrived, and Adrian's stomach dropped. Richard Kent entered like a conquering general, commanding attention without effort. But it wasn't his father that made Adrian's blood run cold. It was the couple flanking him. Harrison and Vivian Ashford, old money personified, dripping in diamonds and entitlement. And between them, their daughter Dominique. Blonde, beautiful, perfectly composed in a champagne-colored gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. Adrian's hands clenched around his champagne flute. This wasn't a conversation. This was an ambush. His father's eyes found him across the room, and the smile that spread across Richard's face was pure calculation. He began making his way through the crowd, the Ashfords in tow, and Adrian felt the noose tightening. He needed an exit strategy. His eyes landed on her. Faith Coleman stood near the silent auction tables, coordinating with catering staff. She wore a simple black dress that was elegant without being showy, her natural curls pulled back in a sleek ponytail. He'd seen her before, 6 months ago at a charity auction where she'd been working as an event coordinator. He'd asked her to dinner that night. She'd looked at him like he was something unpleasant she'd found on her shoe and said, "I don't date men who think the world exists to serve them. But thank you for the offer, Mr. Kent." It had been the first time anyone had rejected him in years. He'd found it infuriating. Now, watching his father approach with the Ashfords, watching the trap close around him, that rejection suddenly seemed like salvation. Adrian moved fast. He crossed the room in long strides, aware of his father watching, aware of Dominique's confused expression. He stopped in front of Faith, who looked up in surprise. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Forgive me." Then he took her face in his hands and kissed her. Faith's first instinct was to pull away. Her second was to slap him, but something in Adrian's desperate grip, in the way his hands trembled against her face, made her hesitate. She could feel eyes on them, lots of eyes. When Adrian finally pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "Play along," he breathed. "Please, just for tonight. I'll explain everything." "You have 5 seconds to let go of me," Faith said quietly. "Before I knee you somewhere expensive suits can't protect." "Faith, Adrian?" A sharp, cultured voice cut through the moment. "What is the meaning of this?" Adrian stepped back but kept one hand on Faith's waist, a possessive gesture that made her blood boil. She turned to see an older version of Adrian, same sharp features, same cold eyes, standing with an elegant blonde woman and an older couple who looked like they'd walked out of a Ralph Lauren ad. "Father," Adrian said, his voice steady despite the hand on Faith's waist trembling slightly. "I'd like you to meet Faith Coleman, my fiancée." The silence that followed was deafening. The blonde woman, Dominique, Faith realized, went pale. Richard Kent's face turned an alarming shade of red. The Ashfords looked scandalized. "You're what?" Richard's voice was deadly quiet. "My fiancé," Adrian repeated. His hand tightened on Faith's waist. "We've been seeing each other for 6 months. We wanted to keep it private, but..." He looked down at Faith with an expression that almost looked genuine. "I couldn't keep pretending she isn't all I wanted." Faith's mind was spinning. She should expose this lie, should walk away and let Adrian face the consequences of his desperation. Instead, she heard herself say, It's lovely to meet you, Mr. Kent. What followed was the most uncomfortable hour of Faith's life. She was swept into a private room with Adrian, his father, Dominique, and the Ashfords. Richard Kent interrogated her like a hostile witness, about her background, her family, her business, her intentions. Faith answered honestly, refusing to embellish or apologize for who she was. Yes, her parents were middle class. Yes, she'd built her business from nothing. No, she didn't come from money or connections. And you expect us to believe, Richard said coldly, that you're engaged to my son? I don't expect you to believe anything, Faith replied calmly. I'm simply telling you the truth as Adrian presented it. Dominique, to her credit, remained composed throughout. When her parents finally ushered her out, she paused by the door to look at Adrian with something like pity. You always were terrified of being told what to do, she said softly. Even when the cage you're building for yourself is smaller than the one we offered. After they left, Richard turned to his son. I don't know what game you're playing, Adrian, but you will end this farce. You will apologize to the Ashfords, and you will— No. Adrian's voice was steel. I love her, and I'm going to marry her. Richard's laugh was bitter. Love? You? You're as capable of love as a calculator is of poetry. This is a ploy to avoid your responsibilities, and we both know it. He turned to Faith. How much does he have to pay you to play along with this charade? Faith stood, her chair scraping loudly in the tense silence. I don't know what kind of world you live in, Mr. Kent, where everything has a price tag, but I'm not for sale, and neither is your son's happiness. She looked at Adrian, her eyes blazing. We need to talk, alone. Faith dragged Adrian into an empty conference room and shut the door with enough force to make him flinch. What the hell was that? She demanded. I'm sorry, I panicked. My father ambushed me with Dominique, and You used me. Faith's voice shook with fury. You kissed me without permission. You announced a fake engagement without my consent. You made me lie to your father and humiliated another woman, all because you couldn't face your own problems like an adult. You're right. Adrian ran his hands through his hair, destroying his perfect styling. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. I'll go back out there and tell them the truth. And give your father what he wants? Let him control your life? What choice do I have? Faith stared at him, this powerful man who looked utterly lost. She thought about his father's cold eyes, about the way he'd spoken about Adrian like he was an asset to be managed rather than a son to be loved. I'll help you, she said finally. Adrian's head snapped up. What? I'll play your fiancé, but not because you're paying me. And not because I like you, I don't. I think you're arrogant, controlling, and emotionally stunted. She stepped closer. I'm doing this because I watched your father treat you like property. And nobody deserves that. Faith. But I have rules, she continued. First, you never touch me without asking. Ever. What you did out there. Never again. Agreed. Second, you don't get to control me. How I dress, how I speak, who I spend time with, that's my business. I'm not your possession. I'm doing you a favor. Understood. Third, when this is over, when you've secured whatever you need from your father, we end this cleanly. No drama, no mess. We both walk away. Adrian nodded slowly. And fourth? Faith's eyes softened slightly. You start standing up for yourself, to your father, to your world, because pretending with me is just another form of control. Eventually, you're going to have to figure out what you actually want, and have the courage to fight for it. What if what I want is impossible? Then you fight for it anyway. Faith extended her hand. Do we have a deal, Mr. Kent? Adrian looked at her hand, then at her face. Call me Adrian. If we're engaged, you should probably use my first name. Do we have a deal, Adrian? He took her hand. We have a deal. The next 6 weeks were a masterclass in deception. Before we continue, special shout-outs to some of our special audience on this channel who appreciates us with super thanks. Grace Goodrich, Mary Storms, and Gail Clayton. Your gifts mean the world to us. Adrian and Faith fell into a routine of public appearances. Dinners at expensive restaurants, charity events, society functions. They crafted a believable backstory. They'd met at that charity auction, kept their relationship secret because Faith valued privacy, finally decided to make it official, The media ate it up. Ice King melts for unknown event planner, read the headlines. Photographers followed them everywhere, and somewhere in all the pretending, something unexpected began to happen. Adrian discovered that Faith was brilliant. Not just at event planning, but at reading people, at navigating complex social dynamics, at making even the most tedious obligation bearable with her quiet humor. She'd lean in during boring speeches and whisper observations that made him struggle not to laugh out loud. Faith discovered that beneath Adrian's cold exterior was a man who listened intently when she spoke about her work, who remembered small details she'd mentioned in passing, who treated service staff with respect when he thought no one was watching. They still argued about everything. Adrian tried to send his stylist to her apartment. Faith sent them back with a polite but firm note that she could dress herself. Adrian attempted to schedule her time. Faith ignored his calendar invitations and showed up when it suited her. But they also laughed, talked, shared stories about their childhoods, his suffocating and privileged, hers warm but financially precarious. The breaking point came at Richard Kent's annual autumn reception at his Fifth Avenue mansion. It was Faith's first time entering the fortress of old money, and every detail was designed to make her feel inferior. The priceless art, the crystal that cost more than most people's cars, the guests who looked at her like she was an exotic pet Adrian had brought home. Richard barely acknowledged her presence, instead spending the evening introducing Adrian to important people while shooting Faith disapproving glances. Faith handled it with grace, engaging with guests who actually bothered to talk to her, complimenting Richard's wife on her choice of caterer, which made the woman briefly warm to her, and refusing to let the condescension touch her. She was standing alone on the mansion's terrace, taking a break from the performance, when someone joined her. "You look like you could use a friendly face." Faith turned to find a man about Adrian's age with warm hazel eyes, sandy brown hair, and a genuinely kind smile. He wore his tuxedo like it was comfortable rather than armor. "I'm Joshua Brennan," he said, extending his hand. "But everyone calls me Josh. I'm Adrian's oldest friend, Faith Coleman." She shook his hand. "The fake fiancé." Josh's eyebrows rose, then he laughed, a warm, open sound. "So you know it's obvious? Is it? To me, absolutely. I've known Adrian since we were kids. I've seen him in love, once when he was 22, before his father destroyed that relationship too." "This?" He gestured to the party inside. "This is Adrian performing, and you're performing with him." Faith should have denied it. Instead, she found herself saying, "How did you know?" "Because Adrian looks at you like you're a problem he's trying to solve, and you look at him like he's a patient you're trying to heal. Neither of those are how people in love look at each other." Josh's smile softened. "The real question is why? Why are you helping him?" "Because everyone deserves someone in their corner," Faith said simply. "Even arrogant billionaires who think emotions are weaknesses." Josh studied her for a long moment. "He doesn't deserve you, you know, but God, I wish he did." After that night, Josh became a regular fixture in their performance. He'd show up at events, ease the tension with his humor, engage Faith in actual conversation while Adrian networked. He asked about her business, her dreams, her life outside of the role she was playing. And Faith found herself looking forward to seeing him. Josh was everything Adrian wasn't. Warm where Adrian was cold, open where Adrian was guarded, comfortable in his own skin where Adrian was constantly controlling himself. He made her laugh, really laugh, in a way she hadn't in months, Adrian noticed. It started small. The way Josh would lean in when talking to Faith, the way her face lit up when he approached, the ease between them. Then it became impossible to ignore. At a charity dinner, Adrian watched Josh make Faith laugh so hard she had to cover her mouth to keep from disrupting the speeches. Something dark and possessive twisted in his chest. "She likes him," his cousin James said, appearing at his elbow. "Your fake fiancé has real chemistry with your best friend. That's gotta sting." "We are real," Adrian said through gritted teeth. "We're in love. Are you sure about that?" James smiled cruelly. "Because from here, it looks like Josh is falling for her. And she's falling back. The only person still pretending is you." Adrian spent the rest of the evening watching them, watching the way Josh touched Faith's arm gently when making a point. The way Faith leaned into that touch. The way they communicated with glances and small smiles. And he realized with devastating clarity that he'd been lying to himself. He wasn't pretending anymore. He was in love with Faith Coleman, and he was losing her to his best friend. The revelation sent Adrian into a spiral of self-destruction and realization. He became distant, cold again, the Ice King returning with a vengeance. He picked fights with Faith over meaningless things, criticized her choices, tried to control their schedule with renewed intensity. Faith, already exhausted from months of pretending, reached her breaking point. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded after he'd snapped at her for being 5 minutes late to a dinner. They were in his penthouse, the city glittering below them. "You've been impossible for weeks." "Maybe I'm tired of this arrangement," Adrian said coldly. "Maybe I'm tired of pretending with someone who can't even follow a simple schedule." "Then let's end it." Faith's voice was sharp. "Let's go to your father right now and tell him the truth. I'll walk away. You can marry Dominique or whoever else he chooses, and we can both move on with our lives." "Fine. Fine." They stared at each other, both breathing hard, and Adrian felt something inside him shatter. She was willing to walk away, just like that, while he was drowning in feelings he didn't know how to express. "Why are you really angry?" Faith asked softly. "This isn't about being late." "You like him." The words burst out before Adrian could stop them. "Josh, you light up around him in a way you never do with me. You laugh with him, you're real with him." Faith stared. "Are you jealous?" "No." "Yes, I don't know." Adrian turned away, his control crumbling. "I know I have no right to be. This was never supposed to be real. But watching you with him, seeing how easy it is for him to make you smile, His voice broke. "I can't do this anymore, Faith. I can't pretend not to care when every time he touches you, I want to put my fist through a wall." The confession hung in the air between them. "Adrian," Faith whispered, "what are you saying?" "I'm saying I broke our agreement." He finally turned to look at her, his eyes raw with emotion. "I'm saying somewhere between that first kiss and tonight, I fell in love with you. I'm saying that losing the company, disappointing my father, all of it, none of it matters as much as losing you." Faith's eyes filled with tears. "You can't mean that." "Why not?" "Because you don't know how to love, Adrian. You said so yourself. Emotions are variables you don't entertain. Control is all that matters. Remember? I was wrong." He stepped toward her. "You were right that first night at Russo's. I didn't know what I wanted, but I know now I want you, Faith, not the performance. Not the arrangement. You, the real you who calls me out when I'm being an arrogant ass. Who treats everyone with kindness. Who makes me want to be better than I am." "You're confused," Faith said, but her voice shook. "You're mistaking proximity for love. Once this arrangement ends, I'll realize I let the best thing that ever happened to me walk away because I was too much of a coward to fight for her." Faith was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this. I can't be another thing you try to control, another acquisition, I don't want to control you," Adrian said desperately. "I want to deserve you. I want to earn the right to love you. Please, Faith, give me a chance." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his eyes. But she also saw the impossibility of it all. "What about your father, the company, everything you've been fighting for?" "Doesn't matter. Not without you. And when you resent me for it? When you wake up 5 years from now and realize you gave up your legacy for someone from a different world? Then I'll wake up next to the woman I love and know I made the right choice." Faith closed her eyes, her whole body trembling. "I need time. I can't think when you're looking at me like that. How am I looking at you? Like I'm the only thing in the world that matters, and it's terrifying." Faith ran, not physically, but emotionally. She pulled back from Adrian, put distance between them. She told him they needed to maintain the pretense for his father, but keep it professional. The problem was Josh. Josh, who noticed her pulling away from Adrian. Josh, who asked if she was okay with genuine concern. Josh, who had become her friend, her confidant, her safe space in the chaos of Adrian's world. He told you how he feels, Josh said one afternoon. They were at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, far from the Manhattan fishbowl. Didn't he? Faith nodded, unable to speak. And you're running. I'm being smart. Adrian doesn't love me. He loves the idea of something he can't control. Once he has me, once the chase is over, he'll revert to exactly who he was. Josh was quiet for a long moment. Can I tell you a story? Of course. When Adrian was 22, he fell in love with a girl named Isabel. She was an artist, creative, free-spirited, everything his father hated. Adrian was going to walk away from everything for her. He'd already started making plans. And then Richard found out. Josh's expression darkened. Richard destroyed her, crushed her gallery showing, blacklisted her in the art world, even got her apartment lease terminated. He systematically took apart her life until Adrian had to choose, his future or hers. He chose his future, and Isabel left New York. Adrian has never forgiven himself. Faith felt her heart clench. Why are you telling me this? Because Adrian has spent 11 years building walls to make sure he never feels that powerless again. He's controlled every aspect of his life to avoid ever loving someone enough to hurt like that. And then you walked in, refused to be controlled, and broke through every defense he's spent a decade building. Josh reached across the table to take her hand. He's terrified, Faith. But he's also telling you the truth. He loves you, maybe for the first time since Isabel. He's brave enough to love someone. What if it's not enough? Faith whispered. What if love isn't enough to overcome everything that's broken in him? Then you'll have tried, and you'll know. Josh squeezed her hand gently. But Faith, I need to tell you something too. She looked up, surprised by the sudden change in his voice. I'm falling in love with you too. The words hit her like a physical blow. Josh. I know you're supposed to be with Adrian. I know I'm his best friend. But I can't help it. Being around you, seeing your kindness, your strength, the way you light up every room you enter. I tried not to feel it, but I failed. He smiled sadly. And the worst part is, I think you might have feelings for me too. Faith opened her mouth to deny it, then stopped. Because he was right. Somewhere in all the chaos with Adrian, she'd developed feelings for Josh. He was easy to love, open, warm, uncomplicated. I don't know what I feel, she admitted. Then let me make this easy for you, Josh said. I'm leaving in 2 weeks for a year-long project in London, architecture redesign for the British Museum. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. Come with me. What? Come with me. Leave all this pretending behind. Let Adrian fight his own battles. Build a real life with someone who loves you without reservation, without walls, without fear. Faith was torn apart. 2 men, both offering her versions of love she'd never expected. Adrian, complicated, damaged, fighting against every instinct to let her in, offering her passion and intensity and the terrifying thrill of loving someone who was learning how to love again. Josh, kind, stable, offering her peace and partnership, and a life where love was simple and uncomplicated. She confided in her sister Naomi, who listened with the patience of someone who'd known Faith her entire life. Which one makes you feel alive? Naomi asked. They both do, just differently. That's not what I asked. Which one makes you feel like the best version of yourself? Faith thought about it. With Josh, she felt safe, appreciated, seen. With Adrian, she felt electric, challenged, like every moment was a revelation or a battle or both. Adrian, she admitted. But I'm terrified of him. Because he could hurt you. Because I could hurt him. He's so fragile beneath all that control, Naomi. What if I'm not enough to heal what's broken in him? What if his father destroys us the way he destroyed Isabel? Then you'll have loved bravely and lost, Naomi said. But Faith? Running to Josh because he's safer isn't fair to either of you. Josh deserves someone who chooses him first, not someone running from someone else. The winter gala arrived like a deadline Faith wasn't ready to meet. It was the night Adrian's engagement, real or fake, was supposed to be announced officially. The night Richard Kent would either accept Faith or destroy her. Faith wore midnight blue, the dress a gift from Adrian that he'd sent without expectation or demand. The note with it simply said, I thought you'd like this. No pressure. When she arrived at the plaza, both men were waiting. Adrian in a classic black tuxedo, his eyes full of desperate hope when he saw her. Josh beside him, looking heartbreakingly handsome and resigned. You look beautiful, Adrian said softly. Stunning, Josh agreed. The gala was a glittering nightmare of expectations. Richard Kent held court like a king. Dominique Ashford was there with her parents, looking at Adrian with a mixture of pity and triumph. And every eye was on Faith, the outsider who'd somehow captured the Ice King. Richard cornered Faith early in the evening. I've had you investigated, he said without preamble. Your business is legitimate, your reputation is solid, but you're still nobody. No family name, no connections, no breeding. You're a liability Adrian doesn't need. And yet he chose me over Dominique, Faith replied calmly. That should tell you something about what he needs versus what you want for him. Adrian doesn't know what he needs. He's never had to fight for anything. I've given him everything. The education, the connections, the company, all he has to do is stop being selfish and do his duty. His duty to build the legacy you want, or his duty to live the life he chooses? Richard's eyes went cold. You think you're good for him? You'll ruin him. His peers will never respect him married to someone so beneath his station. The company will suffer. Everything I've built will crumble because he's confused proximity and gratitude for love. Maybe, Faith said quietly. Or maybe love is the only thing that will save him from becoming exactly like you. Powerful, respected, and utterly alone. She walked away before he could respond, her heart hammering. She found Adrian on the terrace, staring out at the glittering city. Your father hates me, she said. My father hates anything he can't control. Adrian turned to face her. Faith, I need to tell you something. Tonight is the night I'm supposed to announce my engagement. My real engagement, if I don't do it, you lose everything, Faith finished softly. Yes? He stepped closer. But I realized something tonight. Watching you handle my father, watching you shine in this world that's designed to make people like you feel small, I realized that losing the company would hurt, but losing you would destroy me. Faith's breath caught. Adrian, I know you don't feel the same way, he continued, his voice rough with emotion. I know this started as a performance, a business arrangement, but somewhere between that first night and now, I fell in love with you. Completely irrevocably, and I need you to know that before... Before what? A warm voice said behind them. They both turned to find Josh standing in the terrace doorway, his expression carefully neutral but his eyes sad. He looked at Adrian, then at Faith, and something passed between the three of them, an acknowledgement of the impossible situation they'd created. Before I do something incredibly selfish, Adrian finished quietly. Josh walked onto the terrace, his hands in his pockets. You're going to tell your father the truth, aren't you? Yes. And lose everything you've worked for? Yes. Josh looked at Faith, and the love in his eyes was so clear, so painful, that she felt her heart break a little. And what does Faith want? Has anyone asked her? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Adrian's face went pale. You're right, Adrian said, his voice barely above a whisper. He looked at Faith. What do you want? Not what I want. Not what serves my purposes. What do you want? Faith looked between the two men, both of whom she'd come to care for in such different ways. Adrian, complicated and broken and brave enough to choose love over legacy. Josh, kind and steady and willing to step aside even though it was killing him. I want. She started, then stopped, because she didn't know. Not really. Take your time, Josh said gently. This isn't a decision you should rush. But before Faith could respond, Richard Kent's voice cut through the night like a blade. How touching, a love triangle at my gala. All three of them turned to find Richard standing in the terrace doorway, Dominique beside him. But there was something different about Richard's expression now, something almost triumphant. I've been watching you all evening, Richard continued, stepping onto the terrace. The way you look at her, Adrian, the way she looks at Joshua, the way Joshua looks at her when he thinks no one is watching. He smiled coldly. Tell me, son, is your girlfriend actually your girlfriend? Or is this elaborate performance starting to fall apart? Adrian's jaw clenched. That's none of your business. It becomes my business when you're using fraud to avoid your obligations. Richard pulled out his phone, tapping the screen. I had you followed after that introduction at the gala. My investigator found some interesting things. He showed them the screen. Photographs of Adrian and Faith's meetings, all with timestamps and context that made it clear their relationship had been fabricated. So here's what's going to happen, Richard said. You're going to announce your engagement to Dominique tonight as planned. Or I'm going to release these photographs to every business publication and news outlet in New York. Your reputation will be destroyed. Your investors will abandon you, and you'll lose everything anyway. But this way, you'll lose it while being humiliated publicly as a fraud and a liar. Faith felt the blood drain from her face. This was so much worse than she'd imagined. You'd destroy your own son? She asked, her voice shaking with anger. I'm saving him from himself, Richard replied coldly. From making the same mistake I almost made, marrying for love instead of duty. My father stopped me, and now I'm stopping Adrian. By blackmailing him? By teaching him that emotions are liabilities. Control is power, and power is the only thing that matters in this world. Adrian was shaking, with rage or fear or both. I won't do it. Release the photos. Destroy my reputation. I don't care anymore. Then you're a fool, Richard said, and you don't deserve the empire I built for you. He turned to leave, Dominique following reluctantly, but Josh's voice stopped them. Wait, Josh said quietly. I have a better solution. Everyone turned to look at him. Josh's expression was calm, but Faith could see the pain beneath it, the sacrifice he was about to make. Let Adrian and Faith be together, Josh said. Really together. Give them a chance to see if what they feel is real or just a performance they've convinced themselves of. Richard's eyes narrowed. And why would I agree to that? Because I'll give you what you want, Josh replied. I'll merge my architecture firm with Kent Industries. It's a $50 million company with international contracts. You've been trying to diversify into sustainable building for years. I'll give you that, but only if you leave Adrian and Faith alone. No blackmail, no ultimatums, no more arranged marriages. Josh, no, Adrian started, but Josh held up his hand. This is my choice, Adrian, not yours. He looked at Richard. Do we have a deal? Richard studied Josh for a long moment, clearly calculating the value of the offer. Finally, he nodded. 6 months. If they're still together after 6 months, I'll accept this. Relationship. But if they're not, if this falls apart like I know it will, Adrian announces his engagement to someone I approve of. No more games. Deal, Josh said before Adrian could protest. Richard and Dominique left, leaving the three of them alone on the terrace. The silence was suffocating. Why would you do that? Adrian finally asked, his voice raw. Josh looked at Faith, and the love and resignation in his eyes made her want to cry. Because she deserves to know if what she feels for you is real, and because I love her enough to want her to be happy, even if it's not with me. Josh, Faith started, tears streaming down her face. Don't, Josh said gently. Don't thank me or apologize or try to make this easier. Just be happy, Faith. That's all I want, for you to be genuinely, completely happy. He looked at Adrian. And you. Don't waste this. Don't take her for granted. Don't let your fear of feeling turn you back into the man you were before she came into your life. Then, before either of them could respond, Josh walked away. And Faith felt like she was watching the kindest man she'd ever known break into pieces while trying to smile. The weeks that followed were the strangest of Faith's life. Adrian, true to his word, gave her space to figure out what she wanted. But he also fought for her in ways that broke down every wall she'd built. He didn't try to control her schedule or her choices. Instead, he showed up at her office with coffee and genuine interest in her work. He asked about her dreams, her fears, her vision for her life. He introduced her to his world not as an accessory, but as an equal. And slowly, Faith began to see the man beneath the ice, the one who'd been terrified of feeling for so long that he'd forgotten how. The one who was learning, step by painful step, how to love without controlling. They had their first real date, not a performance, not a strategic appearance, at a tiny Thai restaurant in Queens that Adrian found because Faith had mentioned once that she missed the place near her childhood home. He was overdressed in his tailored suit, completely out of place among the plastic chairs and paper napkins. And he was perfect. "I'm not good at this," he admitted over pad thai. The real stuff. Feelings and vulnerability and letting someone see all the broken parts. "Neither am I," Faith confessed. "I've spent my whole life being strong, being independent. The idea of needing someone terrifies me. Then let's be terrified together." It was messy and hard and nothing like the fairy tales Faith had grown up reading. But it was real, and yet through it all, Faith couldn't stop thinking about Josh. She'd see him occasionally at events. He was still Adrian's best friend, though things were strained between them now. Josh was always kind, always warm, always careful to keep his distance. But Faith could see the pain he carried, the sacrifice he'd made weighing on him. One night, 3 months into her real relationship with Adrian, Faith found herself at Josh's architecture firm. She'd told herself she was there to thank him for what he'd done, but the truth was more complicated. Josh looked surprised when his assistant showed her in. "Faith, is everything okay?" "I needed to see you," she said. "To talk to you without Adrian there, without an audience." "Okay." Josh gestured to a chair, but Faith remained standing. "Are you happy?" she asked bluntly. Josh smiled sadly. "Are you?" I asked first. "I'm surviving," Josh said quietly. "Getting up every day, doing my work, moving forward. That's about all I can manage right now." "I'm sorry," Faith whispered. "Josh, I'm so sorry that you—" "Don't apologize for falling in love with someone else," Josh interrupted gently. "You can't control who you love, Faith, and you shouldn't feel guilty for choosing what your heart wants." "But you gave up so much. I gave up a company. Adrian gave up his legacy. You gave up your peace of mind by getting involved in our family's mess in the first place." Josh stood walking to the window. "We all made sacrifices. Mine just happened to be the most visible." Faith walked up behind him. "I need to know something. If Adrian and I don't work out, if 6 months from now we realize this was just a beautiful mistake, would you?" "Would I want you then?" Josh turned to face her, his eyes intense. "Faith, I would want you in any timeline, any universe, any circumstance. But I won't be your second choice. I won't be the person you settle for because the exciting option didn't work out. If you and Adrian don't make it, you need to figure out who you are on your own before you even think about being with someone else." "That's very wise." "That's self-preservation," Josh corrected. "Because loving you while you're with someone else is already destroying me. Loving you while you're with me but wishing you were with him, that would kill me." Faith felt tears streaming down her face. "You're one of the best men I've ever known. Just not the right one." "I don't know," Faith admitted. "Josh, I don't know what's right anymore. I know I have feelings for Adrian. Real feelings that scare me, but I hate that figuring out my heart means someone has to get hurt." Josh reached out, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. "Then let me make this easier for you. Choose Adrian. Really choose him. Give yourself permission to love him without guilt, without wondering what if. Because Faith, you can't build something real with one person while emotionally hedging your bets with another." "And what about you?" "I'll be fine," Josh said, though they both knew it was a lie. "I'm going to take that London project after all. A year away will give me perspective. Distance. Maybe by the time I come back, I'll have figured out how to be around you without wanting things I can't have." Faith's heart clenched. "Josh, go back to Adrian," Josh said softly. "He loves you. He's fighting to become better for you. That deserves your full heart, not a divided one." Faith did go back to Adrian. She threw herself into their relationship with renewed commitment, determined to prove that what they had was real. And for a while, it worked beautifully. Adrian continued to evolve, but there was a shadow over everything. The knowledge that in 3 months, Richard would demand proof that their relationship was genuine. And if it wasn't, Adrian would have to marry someone his father approved of, and Josh's sacrifice would have been for nothing. The pressure built slowly. Adrian, terrified of losing everything again, started reverting to old patterns. He wanted to control their narrative, plan their public appearances, orchestrate the perfect image of their relationship. Faith pushed back, reminding him of her rule. He didn't get to control her, but each argument drove a wedge between them. The breaking point came at Adrian's birthday party, a massive event at his penthouse that Richard insisted on attending. Faith arrived to find Josh there, back from London early. "I couldn't miss your birthday," Josh told Adrian with a warmth that had been missing from their friendship for months. "Even if things are weird between us." "Things don't have to be weird," Adrian said, clearly hoping they could rebuild their friendship. But then Richard arrived, and with him came the announcement. "I've decided not to wait the full 6 months. I want to see proof tonight that this relationship is real, a proper engagement. Or Adrian announces his availability and we move forward with a more suitable arrangement." The room went silent. Adrian's face went pale. Faith felt the walls closing in. "That wasn't the deal," Adrian said through gritted teeth. "I'm changing the terms," Richard replied. "Announce your engagement to Faith tonight, or this charade ends." Adrian turned to Faith and she saw the panic in his eyes. She saw the pressure, the fear, the desperate hope that she'd save him again. And suddenly, Faith couldn't breathe. The walls closed in. This wasn't love. This was another performance, another transaction. She was being used to solve Adrian's problem with his father, just dressed up in prettier language. "I can't," she whispered. "Adrian, I can't do this. Faith, please." But she was already backing away, tears streaming down her face. "I need air. I can't." She fled to the terrace, gasping for breath. Behind her, she heard Adrian start to follow, but then Josh's voice. "Let me talk to her." Josh found her on the terrace, shaking and crying and completely overwhelmed. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey, it's okay. Breathe, Faith. Just breathe." "It's not okay," Faith sobbed. "Josh, what am I doing? I thought I loved him. I thought this was real." But in there, when his father demanded an engagement, all I felt was trapped. Like I'm just another piece in their game. Josh wrapped his arms around her, and Faith collapsed into his embrace. "You're not a game piece. You're a person who got caught up in something complicated. I don't know if I love Adrian, or if I just love the idea of saving him," Faith admitted. "And that's not fair to anyone. Not to him, not to you, not to myself. Then what do you want?" Josh asked, the same question Adrian had asked months ago, but this time, Faith had an answer. "I want to feel chosen, not needed, not useful, chosen. I want someone to love me not because I solve their problems, but because I'm me. And Josh." She pulled back to look at him, her eyes searching his face. "With Adrian, I always feel like I'm helping him become someone better. But with you, I feel like I'm already enough." Josh's breath caught. "Faith, I know it's not fair. I know I just put you through hell. I know you told me to choose Adrian and give him my full heart. But Josh, I think my heart knew what it wanted all along, and I was just too scared to admit it." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you," Faith whispered. "Not because you're safer or easier, but because when I imagine my future, the person I want to build a life with, it's you." "It's always been you." Josh closed his eyes and Faith saw tears slip down his cheeks. "I want to believe you. God, I want to believe you so badly it hurts. But Faith, you need to be sure. Because I can't be your backup plan. I can't be the person you choose because Adrian's situation got too complicated." "You're not my backup plan," Faith said fiercely. "You're my first choice. I was just too blind to see it until I was faced with losing you." Before Josh could respond, Adrian's voice cut through the moment. "Is this really happening?" They both turned to find Adrian standing in the terrace doorway. His face was a mask of pain and betrayal and resignation. "Adrian?" Faith started, but he held up his hand. "No, I get it. I saw this coming. I think I always knew." He looked at Josh, his oldest friend. "You love her. You've always loved her. And she." He swallowed hard. "She's looking at you the way I always wanted her to look at me." "I'm sorry," Faith whispered. "Adrian, I'm so sorry. I really tried to make my heart feel what it was supposed to feel." "That's the problem," Adrian said, his voice breaking. "Feelings don't work on supposed to. They just are." He looked at Josh. Take care of her, make her happy. That's all I want, for her to be happy. Adrian, wait, Josh started, torn between the woman he loved and his best friend falling apart. But Adrian was already walking away, and this time no one stopped him. The aftermath was brutal. Adrian announced to his father that the relationship with Faith was over. Richard, triumphant, immediately began arranging a marriage with someone from an appropriate family. Adrian didn't fight it. He simply shut down, retreating behind the walls he'd spent months taking apart. Josh's sacrifice, his company, his merger with Kent Industries was nullified. He didn't care. He'd gotten his company back, but at the cost of his best friend. Faith and Josh tried to find their way to happiness, but it was overshadowed by guilt and grief. They'd hurt someone they both cared about, even if unintentionally. 2 months after that terrible birthday party, Adrian was scheduled to announce his engagement to Charlotte Whitmore, a banking heiress Richard had selected. The announcement was to be made at yet another gala. This world's solution to everything, apparently. Faith didn't plan to attend, but Josh surprisingly insisted they go. Why? Faith asked. It'll just make everything worse. Because Adrian needs to see that you're happy, Josh said. He needs to know that what happened wasn't for nothing, that you made the right choice. Otherwise, he'll torture himself forever. So Faith found herself at another glittering ballroom, watching Adrian stand on a stage next to a beautiful blonde woman who looked at him with cool calculation rather than love. Richard stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce the engagement of my son Adrian to Charlotte Whitmore. This union brings together 2 of New York's finest families. Faith watched Adrian's face as his father spoke. He looked dead inside. The Ice King returned, every emotion locked away. But then Adrian's eyes found hers across the ballroom, and something cracked in his expression. He looked at her, then at Josh standing beside her, Josh's arm around her waist. Adrian saw what Faith had seen months ago on that terrace. Real love, uncomplicated and genuine. And suddenly, Adrian was smiling, a real smile, sad but genuine. He stepped forward, taking the microphone from his stunned father. I'm sorry, Adrian said, his voice carrying across the now silent ballroom. But I can't do this. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Charlotte looked mortified. Richard's face turned purple with rage. Adrian! Richard started, but Adrian cut him off. I spent my whole life doing what you wanted, Father, becoming who you needed me to be. And I was miserable. I was cold and controlled and completely empty inside. He looked at Faith. Then someone taught me what it felt like to be alive, to feel, to love, and even though I lost her, even though she wasn't mine to lose, I can't go back to being who I was. I won't. He turned to Charlotte. I'm sorry, you deserve someone who can love you properly. That's not me. Then he walked off the stage, ignoring his father's outraged shouts, and made his way through the crowd. But he didn't come to Faith. Instead, he stopped in front of Josh. I've been an ass, Adrian said quietly. A jealous, hurt, bitter ass, and I'm sorry, you were right to love her. She's extraordinary. And I'm happy for you both, genuinely happy even if it hurts like hell. Josh's eyes filled with tears. Adrian, no, let me finish. I'm going to lose the company. My father will make sure of that. But I realized something tonight, watching you 2 together. You gave up your company for a chance at love. And here I am, about to sell my soul to keep mine. What does that say about my priorities? He extended his hand to Josh. Friends? Josh ignored the hand and pulled Adrian into a hug. Always, you idiot, always. As the 2 men embraced, Faith felt her heart crack and heal simultaneously. This was what love looked like, messy and painful and selfless. Adrian losing everything but gaining himself. Josh supporting his friend despite his own heartbreak. All 3 of them learning that sometimes love means letting go. Adrian pulled back, wiping his eyes. I need to go deal with my father. This is going to be ugly. Do you need backup? Josh asked. No, this is something I need to do on my own. Adrian glanced at Faith one last time. Be happy, Faith. That's all I ever wanted, for you to be happy. Then he walked away to face his father's wrath and the destruction of everything he'd built. And somehow, He looked more free than Faith had ever seen him. 1 year later, Faith and Josh were married in a small ceremony in Brooklyn, surrounded by family and genuine friends. No society drama, no billion-dollar guest lists. Just love, simple and real. Adrian attended, having rebuilt his life from the ground up. He'd started a new company, smaller, more focused on ethical investing. His mother, finally free from Richard's control, was thriving in her own apartment and had become an advocate for victims of emotional abuse. Richard was conspicuously absent. The fallout from Adrian's public rejection had been spectacular. Several business partners had quietly severed ties, uncomfortable with Richard's controlling behavior. Charlotte Whitmore had given a damning interview about arranged marriages in the modern age. The Kent empire was shrinking, and Richard was learning that control could only take you so far. At the reception, Adrian approached Faith and Josh's table. "I brought you something," he said, handing Faith an envelope. Inside was a check for an enormous amount. "Adrian, no," Faith started, but he held up his hand. "It's an investment in timeless moments. Not charity, not guilt money. A genuine business investment because I believe in what you're building." "That's all." Faith looked at Josh, who nodded. "If it's truly just business." "It is, though I do have one personal request." Adrian smiled. A warm, genuine smile that had become more common over the past year. "I met someone. A professor at Columbia, brilliant and kind and completely unimpressed by my money. I'd like to hire you to plan our engagement party, if you're available." Faith threw her arms around Adrian, hugging him tight. "I'm so happy for you." "I'm happy for me too," Adrian said softly. "It took losing everything to figure out what actually mattered. So thank you, Faith, for teaching me that some things, some people, are worth more than control." As Faith watched Adrian walk away to rejoin his girlfriend, a warm, intelligent woman who looked at him with genuine affection, she felt the last weight of guilt lift from her shoulders. She'd made the right choice. They'd all made the right choices, even when those choices hurt. Josh slipped his hand into hers. "What are you thinking about?" "About how we all got our happy endings," Faith said. "Just not the ones we planned. The best ones never are." They danced together as the sun set over Brooklyn, 3 people who'd hurt each other and healed each other and ultimately freed each other. It hadn't been a fairy tale. It had been messy and painful and real. And somehow, that made it more beautiful than any fairy tale could ever be.